Hi, welcome to Eric's Movie Corner. I'm Eric, and I'm here to talk about movies. Let's do it. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1976 horror classic, The Omen. This movie was directed by Richard Donner, who passed away not so long ago. Rest in peace. And it starred Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Billy Whitelaw, and Harvey Stevens. The fact that Gregory Peck was in this movie was kind of a big deal. There are some actors who end up being big names that have horror movies earlier in their career, like Jamie Lee Curtis with Halloween and Kevin Bacon with Friday the 13th. But Gregory Peck was a well-known commodity in Hollywood at this point, and he was kind of a name actor. He had a great deal of gravitas that he lent to this film. It was really kind of a step outside the usual bounds in Hollywood for someone of his renown to be in a horror movie. So that's one reason that this movie is notable. Another reason this movie is notable is that the score is phenomenal. The score written by Jerry Goldsmith actually won the Oscar for Best Score that year. So pay attention to it if you watch this movie. This movie was made on a $2.8 million budget and grossed $60.9 million at the box office in North America. So it was quite successful. It was riding on the coattails of The Exorcist a bit, came out 3 years after. So there was a whole devil craze going on in Hollywood at this point. The basic plot of this movie is that Gregory Peck plays an American ambassador who is in Rome when his wife goes into labor. At the hospital where she is giving birth, the hospital chaplain approaches Gregory Peck and tells him that his child was stillborn. But there was another woman giving birth in the hospital that night whose child was fine, but she died in childbirth. So he suggests that it's God's will that the baby be given to them so it can have a good home, and the wife never has to know about the fact that her child was born dead. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, like switching a baby out and not telling your wife, that's a little worse than not taking out the garbage. That's that's something that could get you in trouble. Wouldn't be my move personally, but it's what starts this movie and sets up the chain of events. So they name their son Damien and go on their way. As the movie progresses, strange things start to occur around Damien. There's a bunch of helpers that show up, including a devil nanny and a dog. There's a Rottweiler in this movie. Actually, there's several Rottweilers in this movie. And interestingly enough, after this movie was released, the popularity of Rottweilers skyrocketed. People started adopting more Rottweilers as pets because of this movie. Kind of an interesting factoid there. So this movie is an older movie, and I would be interested to know if any of you younger viewers out there, and by younger, let's say under 30, if you go watch this movie and you haven't seen it before, I am curious to know what you think. So please come back and tell me in the comment section below. I've heard some younger people make remarks about movies like The Exorcist and The Omen, saying that they're boring and too slow and not scary. So I think it's a masterpiece, and I don't understand that perspective. So if you see it and you think that's the case, please tell me why in the comments below. I'd be curious to hear your details. So right now, I'm going to throw up the spoiler flag. I will say that this is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I would highly recommend that you go check this out. Make sure you watch the 1976 version. There was a remake that came out in 2006. Clearly, a marketing executive looked at the calendar and said, hey, wait, June 6, 2006? 666? Let's do a remake of The Omen. It wasn't a good idea. It's not a good movie. So do yourself a favor and just skip that one. Watch the original from 1976. It is a better movie by far. So now I'm going to throw out the spoiler flag and get into some details about the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the movie and come back, and then you can see the rest of this. This movie has some notable moments. Probably one of the first notable moments in the movie is when at his birthday party, Damien's nanny decides that she's going to hang herself and call his attention to her as she does it. So here's a little clip of this right here. Interesting note, the actress here is Holly Palance, who is the daughter of Jack Palance, who some of you might know, although you younger people might not know who that is. But yeah, so check it out.
Damien, it's all for you.
Now, this next scene is when they go to the zoo. I've never been to a zoo that's exactly like the one depicted in this movie, but apparently they have drive-through zoos in England. Who knew? So, in this particular scene, there's a troop of baboons, and I looked it up. That's what you call a group of baboons, is a troop. And interestingly enough, the way they got this scene to work is the troop has a leader. And they took the leader of this troop of baboons and sedated it and put it in the back seat of the car. So, during this scene, while they were filming, apparently they didn't quite sedate it heavily enough because it started to come to, and it actually grabbed Lee Remick's hair from the back seat. So when you watch this and you see Lee Remick screaming, I mean, she's a fine actress, don't get me wrong, but she's got a little help in this scene because she's got a baboon in the back seat yanking her hair, trying to tear her hair out. So that might add a little franticness to the screaming involved. It's also how they got the other baboons to come attack the car because they were trying to get their leader back. So I find that whole little bit of movie making fascinating. Check it out. So, later on in the movie, since Damien's first nanny hanged herself, a new nanny shows up, and it's kind of interesting because they didn't actually send for a new nanny, but this one shows up. It's because she's a servant of Satan, and she's here to protect the young Antichrist. And in this scene, Damien's riding around on his tricycle in his room, and the devil nanny unleashes him to go wreak havoc on his mother. Interesting note about this scene is that they didn't actually have any kind of stunt involved here. This depicts the mother falling off the second floor balcony in their home. But what they did is they actually had Lee Remick on kind of a conveyor belt turntable. So when you see her, what appears to be falling towards the floor, she's actually standing up and being rotated as she's moved towards a wall. They did the shot of the falling fish to set up the fact that the gravity exists and that that's the floor. Those fish were not alive, by the way. So there was no animal cruelty happening in this scene, in case you're worried about that. It's all good. So, yeah, check it out. So, yeah, after everything is said and done, basically Damien's father goes to an archaeologist who's provided him with 7 daggers with which to kill the Antichrist. And he's having a bit of a crisis because he doesn't believe that this kid can be the Antichrist because it's just a kid. But he finds the birthmark under his hair that says 666 and eventually tries to kill the Antichrist. But he is stopped, and Gregory Peck's character is the ambassador to Britain and has friends in high places. So at the end of the movie, you see where Damien ends up and that his path to power is frighteningly clear. So here's how the movie ends. Interesting note here, the way Richard Donner got Harvey Stevens, the child that plays Damien, to do this is he basically stood behind the camera and taunted him, saying, "Now don't you smile, don't do it, don't you dare smile." And so that's how this was done. So this is the last shot of the movie right here. It's pretty slick. Check it out.
Excuse me, Mr. President. When you're ready to leave, your car is right over there.
In a moment.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that is The Omen. I really love this movie, so I hope that those of you that had not seen it before watched it before the spoiler flag and have enjoyed me talking about this movie. If you did, please give it a like below. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to see more of this type of material, hit the subscribe button and you'll see all the ones I post. So, thanks for stopping by Eric's Movie Corner. Come back next time.